Welcome back. It is time for Arc 2 of Mushoku Tensei. And there's a link in the description for the playlist if you need a reminder for what happened in Arc 1. Here are the arcs and how they line up with the anime and the light novel, just in case you need them. We ended the last arc with Rudius in a wagon on the way to his new job. So we know that Rudy is from Buena Village, which is somewhere within this circle here. And he is headed to the city of Roa, which is not on the map at all. So I'm not exactly sure where it is, but given what happens in the future and the general consensus of what I've seen from other people, it's probably also within this circle. And from history, we know that the city of Roa was the last defense against the demons back when they had their war. So my guess is that the city is somewhere along the mountain line, but I'm not sure about that. That would put Buena Village somewhere probably closer to the over here. But again, that is 100% just a guess. I am not completely sure. I'm more sure that both of the places are within the circle, but I'm less sure on the exact locations. And the light novel actually says that it takes 7 hours for them to travel from Buena Village to the city of Roa. So I'm not about to do the math to figure out the distance between each, especially because I don't know exact location. So someone else can do all that work. The anime just skips over the travel after they get done reading the letter from Paul. They just end up at the manor or castle or whatever it is. In the light novel, Ghislaine points out all the shops and stuff in town. It's nothing overly important, but she does point out where these stagecoaches are that people normally use to travel around, and that explains why he knows about them later on. And we learn that Roa isn't really that impressive of a city, according to some nobles. Apparently, some nobles at the capital think that Roa is just a city for adventurers. A crude backwater city of adventurers, I think, is the more exact phrase. But fuck those guys. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Rudy is led to a waiting room with beastkin maids and a large butler named Thomas poured him a drink. The light novel says this is tea, but from the anime, I 100% thought this was wine. A moment later, a man walks in. The butler and maids bow politely, and Rudy concludes that this is his employer. Nice to meet you. I'm Rudius Greyrat. A noble says hello by drawing back his left foot, making a circle with his right hand, and bowing slightly. I am Philip Boreas Greyrat, the mayor of this city. I suppose I'm Paul's cousin. Ah, I get it now. That scoundrel used his family connections. That said, I never thought our family was so high status. That's a good point. We, as the audience, know a little bit about Paul's nobility, but I guess they never brought it up to Rudy. In fact, both of his parents are nobility, at least low nobility. I guess since they both decided to leave that behind, there really wasn't a reason to bring it up. This whole scene plays out differently in the light novel. Rudius actually meets Soros Boreas Greyrat first. That's Paul's dad and the person in charge of the entire region. And this happens later on in the anime, so I'll talk about it then. But the light novel has it happen here. The butler sticks up for Rudy whenever Soros yells at him about his lack of manners, at least before he's told to shut up. And I'm not really sure if this is Thomas or another butler. The way the scene is set up, it seems like it would be Thomas, which adds some reasoning for later events. Philip comes in after his dad leaves, and then the story pretty much matches up with what's going on in the anime. How much do you know? That if I educate a young lady here for 5 years, you'll help me pay my enrollment in Magic University. That's all? Good grief, I see he hasn't changed. I'll introduce you to my daughter, then we'll talk. Some info is left out of the anime. Philip already knows everything about Rudy and Sylphie, and it makes him worried that Rudy is going to try to seduce his daughter like he did with Sylphie. And the conversation here doesn't really help. Philip grills him more on his interest in girls, and it is brought up in the anime, but it's more of like a passing thought. Rudy even starts to question if Paul sent him there so that he could pull Sylphie into his harem, but even Philip knows that Paul is into more well-endowed women. Also, she would be like 12 by the time he got back, so I'm not really sure why he was that worried. As Philip says, Paul isn't that much of a fiend. I already told Paul, but my daughter is just a little willful. She only takes to a few select people. Ghislaine and her etiquette teacher, Edna. That's it. That is the only people that she likes according to the light novel. And I'm pretty sure her granddad, Soros, should be included in that list, so those three people are the only ones. I don't expect much from you, but I'll try you out because Paul asked. Eris, I brought a new teacher for you. Intense. That was my first impression. All my senses are flashing danger signals. The light novel uses the word arrogant instead of intense, and I have no idea why, but it bugged the fuck out of me. Arrogant's not even like a bad word to use, but intense is just such a better word that I felt robbed reading arrogant. And this probably doesn't have any effect on anyone else in the entire world. Pleased to meet you. I'm Rudius Greyrat. What? You're younger than me. I don't believe my age is relevant. Are you disagreeing with me? You can't do all the things that I can, can't. A slap across his face cuts him off. What nerve? Who do you think I am? My second impression was violent. Rudy decides to return fire. He lightly slaps her back. Now do you understand what it feels like to be hit? A punch sends him flying. Like a wild beast, Eris pins him down and proceeds to let out her anger on his face. Rudius uses wind to blast her away, allowing him to escape. He runs away, but the enraged Eris will not let him go. He manages to lose her by hiding and makes his way back to Philip. What will you do now? Give up? I will not. If I just slink back home, Father is surely going to laugh at me. All the other teachers admitted defeat at this point. But do you have a plan? Why don't we put on a little act? Something to trick your daughter into wanting to study. And thus the plan was made. The plan is to fake a kidnapping. The anime doesn't say it just yet, but I need to explain it here for everything to make sense. Eris would be kidnapped, and then she would be helpless and have to rely on him to escape, which would then push her into letting him teach. Theoretically, anyway. All of this is pretty similar to the light novel, but it's slightly different. First off, Philip doesn't go with them to introduce his daughter. It doesn't really change anything, but it just felt a little weird to me. Second, Rudy tries to explain that they're related, but they're distantly related, so it kind of goes over her head. They're second cousins, which, admittedly, I didn't know what that meant either. It just means that their dads are cousins. And this is still too much for her, so she gets frustrated and ends up slapping him like she does in the anime. Third, and the biggest difference here, the order of events are switched around. Rudy actually brings up the kidnapping plan when he first meets Philip. They're talking about Eris, and Rudy is just like, I'll go meet her, and if she's annoying, I'll kidnap her. He hasn't even met her yet. He threw out this whole plan without knowing anything about her. And Philip just accepts it. Yes, kid who just showed up here. When my daughter gives you problems, we'll fake a stressful situation so that she wants to learn. Having this conversation first is so funny, but I'm glad the anime switched it. Rudy thinks that he can't go back because Paul will end up making fun of him. And in the light novel, he thinks that he won't be looked down on by someone who is technically younger than him. Which is also funny because that is Eris's thoughts whenever she goes off on him. Rudy is taken to his room and plops down on the bed. I'm sick of getting beaten up, like in my old life. I have to succeed. Without his holy relic, he uses Roxy's necklace as a substitute. God, please, help me find success. Exhausted from the day, he falls asleep. In the light novel, Rudy reflects more on his past life. This isn't the first time that he's been beat up, but he does handle it better this time. Part of it is that he feels closer to his new family, but he even admits that even if his old family had been there and helped him out more, he still wouldn't have done anything. In fact, he says that this time is different because he is different. He has decided to push forward, so in addition to his family's love and support, He also is extremely motivated to do better than his past life. And it's a nice little touch that I wish the anime would have included, but it's fine. Rudy wakes up inside of a box in a strange room. It was supposed to be clean. Well, I guess the atmosphere can't hurt. Now, we'll use my magic and knowledge to escape. From the light novel, the plan was to go to town, piss off Eris so that she goes off on her own, which isn't that hard to do. And then have Rudy be the only one to go after her, and then they would both be snatched. Neither version say anything else about it, so I'm assuming that is what actually happens for both. Eris wakes up and is instantly angry. She gets up and begins banging on the door. It is kicked open, sending her flying backwards. A mercenary walks into the room. Oh, nice choice. She'll never guess it's all an act now. That hurt. I'll clobber you. What'd you fucking say? The man kicks Eris and she bounces off the wall. That wasn't enough to stop her. She gets up and tries to attack, but the man easily knocks her back down and stomps her face into the ground, leaving her bloody. On the way out, he punches Rudy. Once they're alone, Rudy walks over to Eris and starts an incantation. Healing. This is something that he mentioned earlier. He can't use healing magic without using the incantation. And I'll talk about that more later. Probably. The spell goes off, but Eris notices that she's still hurt. Heal me all the way. You'd just shout again if I did. Cast a spell yourself. I don't know how. You could do it if you studied. He's going to hammer this point home the entire time. I'm not about to repeat it every time that he does, so just assume that he is saying it every 2 minutes. And it's also one of the reasons that he doesn't fight back. He wants to teach her that violence isn't the answer. Rudy prepares to escape by barricading the door and removing the bars from the window. Help me. Her yelling alerts the kidnappers, and they notice the door won't open. Just use your fist, right? It's your specialty. Can you promise not to be violent or shout? The adults break through the door to find an empty room. In the light novel, the kidnapper actually comes back twice because Eris can't stop yelling. And by this point, she starts to beg for help because she got her ass kicked twice. Rudy also hides the fact that he cut his ropes. And that makes so much more sense than in the anime. In the anime, he's just standing there without being tied up when the guy comes through. And the guy doesn't question it at all. I don't know, it's stupid. Once outside, Rudius fully heals Eris. We should be fine now. You promised not to shout, remember? Why should I have to keep a promise to you? She's a kid, calm down. And I'm probably saying that more for myself, but I'm sure there's someone else out there that also needs to hear it. I guess this is goodbye then. The kidnappers scream in the distance as they look for the two escapees. I didn't mean that. I won't shout anymore. Now take me home. I'm not your servant or your employee. What? You're my tutor. You said you didn't like me, so I haven't been hired yet. Well, I'll hire you then. You say that, but you'll just break your promise again. If you do as I say, you can come with me. Using the power of knowledge, they find their way back and get a ride and etc., etc. All the while, Rudy harps on and on about why she needs to learn. A small detail. Rudy had money for the carriage because he hid money in his underwear. Remember, this was all somewhat planned. Almost forgot. According to the light novel, this actually takes place over 2 days. So they get a ride, stay in a hotel, which is probably closer to like a barn. Think of like the beginning of Konosuba where they're sleeping on straw. And then the next day they finish their journey. I'm assuming the anime is the same, but they make it seem like it's the same day, or the same night at least. So who knows? Finally back in Roa, they relax a bit. There were a few hiccups, but this is mostly according to plan. She respects me a little now, I hope. A man walks towards them, holding a lantern. Rudius recognizes him as the servant from the castle, and runs to him. He only makes it a few steps before someone dashes in and grabs Eris. The kidnappers had caught up. Rudy panics and runs after them, down an alleyway. Using magic, he creates a wall to block their path. Return that girl at once. We can't do that. Lady Eris has a certain appointment to meet far away from here. In case it wasn't obvious, this isn't part of the plan. Well, not a part of Rudy's plan. It's 100% a part of Thomas's plan to use Rudy's fake kidnapping plan to do a real kidnapping. I think in both versions he knows that this is real. Like, he figured it out pretty quick whenever they started beating them and talking about selling them. But he's been treating it the same regardless, because he has a goal in mind, and they caught him sleeping. In the light novel, Thomas isn't here at all. I mean, we do learn later that he was the one organizing the kidnapping and everything, but that all happens off screen. Is it off screen if it's in a book? We learn about it after the fact, is what I mean. The light novel is also more clear that they plan on either holding Eris for ransom or selling her to a perverted nobleman. Now, I'm not saying that it's the same perverted guy from the capital that Lilia found really creepy and who will definitely show up again in the story. But I'm also not saying that it isn't that guy. Looks like you're better at magic than I thought. Join us. We'll give you a cut. How much would that be exactly? How does 100 Azura gold pieces sound? Would that pay for 2 enrollments in Magic University? It could pay for 10 with some left over. That's a tempting offer. A reminder that Rudius is getting paid 2 silver coins a month, plus tuition for 2 at the end of 5 years. 5 years is 60 months, which is 120 silver coins plus tuition. The money system doesn't seem to be super well thought out, but from what I've seen from people discussing it, 1 gold is probably 10 silver. So they're offering him 1,000 Azura silver, where he was only going to get 120 plus tuition, whatever that is. And that's also assuming that he's getting paid Azura silver and not some other currency, which is 100% possible. In that case, he would be getting paid even less to tutor, because I think Azura coins are one of the most valuable ones. The point is that they are offering a lot of money. Even at your age, you must know the value of money. If you do, then raise your hand real slow. I do, but I also know there are things more valuable than money. Money can't buy dere. Whoops, did I say that out loud? Okay, admittedly, I thought this was fucking stupid the first time that I saw this. Why didn't they just put money can't buy love or some shit? It gave me just according to Keikaku vibes. But then I remembered that they aren't actually using Japanese here. They're using whatever humans use in this world. So he uses the Japanese word dere, and he really does say money can't buy dere, and they are rightfully confused. In the light novel, they actually see Rudy as a demon, and I mean a literal demon, not like throwing that word out as an insult or whatever. Rudy is a little kid who is able to use all of this magic and is perfectly calm while having this conversation in the stressful situation. So one of the kidnappers comes to the conclusion that this motherfucker is actually a demon who just looks like a kid. And honestly, I can't blame him for coming to that conclusion. Rudius kind of plays along, and the conversation ends up about the same as what it is in the anime. Rudy sends a fireball straight into the air. Once it is far above the buildings, it explodes like a firework, creating a blinding light and showering colorful sparks on the entire area. With the distraction in place, Rudy goes on the attack. He fires stones in the shape of drills at one of the men. They're easily blocked, but explode on impact, covering the alley in smoke. At the same time, the ground comes up and hits the other man in the balls, causing him to drop Eris. Rudius slides in, catching her before she hits the ground, and uses explosion under his feet to fly away. The man with the sword tries to follow, but Rudius has turned the ground to mud, trapping his feet. I won. Fireballs rain down, but are sliced away. The man throws his sword at the last fireball, and it continues towards Rudius. This isn't just desperation. Paul told me something once. The Norse god style has sword-throwing techniques. Rudy flinches and prepares to take the hit. Suddenly, the sword shatters as Ghislaine lands on the ground beneath them. A shockwave destroys the road as she beheads the 2 kidnappers in an instant. Rudy stares at the dead body. Rudius, is that all of them? Yes, thank you very much. There was an explosion, so I checked it out, but what the hell happened? Rudius explains, and they head back to the castle. Philip runs out to meet them. What happened? Ghislaine throws Thomas down, and he begs for forgiveness. I see now. Take him away. Ghislaine grabs his hair and drags him away. Are you alright, Eris? She slaps his hand away, as stubborn as ever. She forces herself to stand up. The promise was until we get home, so I can talk now, right? Yeah, it's fine now. My plan backfired, and I ended up needing Ghislaine to save me. I almost died. I hadn't even thought about it, but what will happen to me if I die again? A very good question that is not going to be answered here. For future reference, the drill and mud attacks are going to be his signature moves, so we'll see those a lot from here on. I'll give you special permission to call me Eris. You mean I can work here? Thank you very much, Lady Eris. No lady, just Eris. I wonder if I earned affection points for my choices back there. Or does she plan on getting her revenge once I'm officially her tutor? Either way, for now I think I'll celebrate landing my first job. The fake kidnapping plan was a success. Kind of. It all worked out in the end, that's really all that matters. So he has a job now, and we will see whether that is an actual good thing or not. Anyway, that's it for now. See ya.